It's a topic which we will hear very few people talk about. What is the Buddhist views on politics? Most of the time, people tend to be very silent about this, and I think it is quite important for us to find out how do we see politics. All right. So now, what is politics? The central problem. Each time when we live in a society, you begin to have political relationships. Now, you may think that politics means voting, having elections, but some of us might not even realize that the moment you have two people, you begin to have some kind of political relationships. Even like a family. You got a little kid down there, you got the mother and the father. Mother and father has been working hard. Father wants to sit in front of the TV and relax. Mother has been working the whole day, and so she wants to sit down and watch some Cantonese show given by a TV Tiga. Then the little kid has been at home for the whole day and he wants to go out. So he will have to find some way of influencing the actions of the parents by saying, oh, come on, Papa, you promised to bring me to Kimisawa or whatever, not Kimisawa, now to what? Yaohan. You promised to bring me to Yaohan, then the father says no. And I'm tired, and then he will begin to think of various kinds of pranks, And kids are very smart. They know how to twist his father. Finally, the father says, all right, I'll bring you to Johan, provided you must make sure that whatever it is, you must make sure that you eat your rice the next day or something like that. But you could see that politics is how individuals try to influence the actions of other people. But when this is taken at the society level, we are interested on how to deploy, how to make use of, or how to limit public power so as to maintain the survival and the quality of human life. So this is the central problem in political philosophy. How we can make use of public power. When you have a government, you have public power. How to make use of that public power, or how to limit so that that public power doesn't become too big, so as we can maintain the survival and then as well as improve the quality of human life in that society. Now, there are many ways in which we can make use of political power to improve the welfare of the people. We can also encourage people to participate in decision making. We can talk about distribution of wealth and resources. We can provide public security and all that. That is one, how we make use of public power. On the other hand, how do you prevent the abuse of power? To prevent the abuse of power in Malaysia as well as in many other countries, we got the separation of the executive. Executive is like cabinet executive. The legislative is parliament, which gives out laws. Then judiciary is the court of law. You see, in our country as well as in many countries which make use of the separation of power, even if somebody in the executive, say somebody in the cabinet, has performed a crime, they can still be brought to trial by the judiciary. So you have the separation of powers. Because if you don't have the separation of powers, the executive will control everything. That means there's a problem of limiting the political power. So you have a system of separation of political power. That is important for the running of a democratic institution like ours. Then the other thing we talk about politics is, how do you get power? What is the legitimacy of the power base? Sometimes you have tradition. Certain people have power because of tradition. Can you think of examples? Say if you are born in a royal family. If you are born in a royal family, by birth, by tradition, you have access to power. Say you're born and say, of course now too late already, already been born already. But if somebody is born, say, into the family as the first son of a royal family of Johor, then he will have the opportunity to perhaps become the next sultan, or succeed the father. All right. So that is more tradition. Sometimes it is hereditary, something which you inherit. Sometimes popular. You stand for elections. The latest thing this morning you read in the newspaper, between Dr. Goh and Dr. Lim. So they had this political threat, and I think Dr. Lim emerged as the winner. So that is by popular, by voting. Some people have political power because of charisma. Charisma means when people look at them, or immediately elect them as a leader. For instance, Gandhi was a very charismatic leader. And so was Hitler, and so was Mussolini. He got charisma, you see. When you look at him, you say, all right, whatever you want, we vote for you. Got personality, charisma. Actually, the idea of political philosophy really developed in the West. It's not so much in the East. In the East, nevertheless, we do have certain rules on government. For instance, the Arthashastra by Chandragupta. During the reign of Chandragupta, the Arthashastra was written to teach the art of governance. And Confucius also did say something about governance, about government and all that. And Hammurabi in Babylon. But to a large extent, the development of political philosophy really comes from the West. You got a string of thinkers. For instance, you got like Plato, who wrote a book called The Republic or The Statesman. These are very influential books. Books which have influenced the political development of the West and also ours, because we borrowed many concepts from the West. Or Aristotle, on how we should make use of public power in order to bring about good life in society. Or Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli is a very bad name. If anybody say, oh, you're a Machiavelli, that means very bad. Because Machiavelli was actually kind of a historian. He was a civil servant, but he made use of history to teach a person how to rule a country. The book he wrote was called The Prince. Now, the book, The Prince, has also been used for business. And I will tell you some of the crooked things he says. Not really crooked, realistic things. But when we listen to it, we get a shock. We say, how can a person be like that, so crooked? One of the things he says that if you are the prince, if you're standing in that position, when it comes to giving awards and all that, you should be there to give awards. But when it comes to giving punishment, let somebody else do it. So people will always think very well of you. So you find that sometimes your bosses are like that. Your big boss. He stand there, he says nice thing, everybody like him. Unpopular thing, he says, okay, call one of his directors, can you please make sure that you do this? So this director are happy when they issue out a notice. He says, okay, everybody must clock in, clocking in or whatever. It's something which is not popular. Then everybody will dislike that person, but we'll see, wow, our managing director very good. That is, for instance, one of the advices given by Machiavelli, but he's given a whole range of advices. He says sometimes it's better to be cruel in order to be kind, rather than to be kind and finally learning up to become cruel. He was saying that, So these are some Machiavellian ideas. Sometimes when you take over a government, you be cruel. You punish a few examples. Everybody becomes scared. Then after that, everybody is okay. Then you can be kind. But on the other hand, you want to be kind, you let everybody enjoy, then they begin to take advantage. Then at that time, towards the tail end, then you would have to punish more people. Then you actually become cruel. So these are some Machiavellian ideas. But I'm not going to talk about Machiavelli. So when people say you're Machiavellian, it's not a good thing. It means you're very calculating, how you manipulate people and all that. But if you're interested, you can read this book called The Prince by Machiavelli. Now he actually is important because he actually changed the political thinking in the West. Then you got a lot of other things like Spinoza. You got Rousseau. Rousseau was talking about social contract. He was one of the persons during the French Revolution. Then you got Karl Marx and Engels, which brought about communism. All right? Now, when we begin to talk about politics and when we talk about Buddhism, we have this idea. How do we see Buddhism with politics? Now, before we can even talk about that, let us talk about what is the basis of religion. What is the base of religion? Religion teaches us to be pure, to have faith, to develop morality. So these are some of the bases of religion. To have a sense of morality, to have faith, to be pure. What is the basis of politics? Political power. Right? So on one hand, you talk about purity, you talk about faith, being moral. On the other hand, you talk about power. And the big question in politics is how do you regulate that power? Now, what happens if religion mixes with politics? You see, in the case of the Dharma, we always try to keep the Dharma separate from politics. What is politics is politics, what is the religion is religion. That is why we say that through history there has not been any shedding of blood in the spreading of Buddhism. But it doesn't mean that Buddhists do not fight each other. Buddhists do fight wars. But when they fight wars, they fight a political or economic war, and not because they want to spread the religion. So you must distinguish this difference. When this is from the Buddhist point of view, when religion merges with politics, then sometimes a religion might be debased, might be disturbed because of the political whims. Sometimes good principles, good religious principles, you have to give up a little bit in order to give in to political ideas. So therefore, if there is a mingling of politics and religion, that religion begins to lose a certain part of its purity. Because it has to cater for those who are in power. And on the other hand, sometimes politics likes to make use of religion. Why? Because in many traditional society, just because the religion is backing it up, then you can go to war, you can do everything. You say, well, it has been supported by religion. For instance, Confucius. Now, if you become the emperor of China, you are fine. You are the son of heaven. And only you can become like an intermediary between the people and heaven. So that's the emperor who makes all the offerings and all that. Because if the emperor doesn't do the offerings, they believe that there's going to be disaster in the country. So they believe he's the son of heaven. So therefore, that kind of belief supports the position of the emperor. So religion has been used to support political power. Right? And sometimes people wage wars, they fight wars. For instance, a crusade. I think there is something like 12 crusades, 10 or 12 crusades, I can't remember. Crusades are when the Turks have captured the Middle East, and the Europeans in Europe, the Christians, tried to get back the land, so they fought wars. Now, one of the crusades was called the Children's Crusade. I think that was the 9th crusade, where young kids, 9 years old, right up to 16 years old, was put on these ships. They believed that they can actually go and fight those Turks. And many of them were sent off. They had all the blessings and all that. They sent off all these kids. Many of these kids died along the way of starvation and all that. Some got sunk. Some was captured as slaves. Those who ever reached the Holy Land was of course, how can these kids fight against the Turks? So that was a crusade. That is when religion supports political, a kind of a political decision. So this is the danger of mixing religion with politics. So therefore, in Buddhism, we would rather like if you're a monk or you're somebody who have led a religious life, you're supposed to keep away from politics. As a monk, you're not supposed to talk about worldly affairs. But on the other hand, we know as lay people that politics is the social reality. There is no escape. We live in a society, we have been governed by political process. We itself give legitimacy to those people holding political power, because we got, let's say, we cast our votes and all that. And therefore, we could influence, to a certain extent, political decisions and political power. And therefore, as Buddhists, we should try to make use, since we can influence political power, we should try to influence it such that political power is being used for a good purpose, for the goodness of society itself. Now, what is the thrust of the Buddha Dharma? Is the Buddha Dharma really interested in politics as such? Actually, the central thing in the Buddha Dharma is not really politics. The Buddha was not really interested in structuring new institutions, existing institutions. The Buddha didn't say, okay, I want to construct a new society for me. He doesn't prescribe anything for a society. Actually, the Buddha takes the political system existing in India at that time as status quo. But on the other hand, he has started a new institution, which is called the institution of the Sangha, in which you've got certain kind of rules which apply in that Sangha community. All right? So actually, the Buddha was not really interested in structuring new political systems. Alright? Like what political philosophers in the West try to do is they try to improve the existing political system. For instance, Rousseau, which talks about that man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains. Man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains. This is because that in the West at that time, actually you find the average person is under chains. Why? They are under the chains of the aristocrats, noble people. Noble people own a lot of land. And they treat these common people like slaves. Whenever they want, they just make you pay, work very hard for them and finally you also have nothing. Take advantage of the people. And on the second thing was the church. The church also had a lot of land, and the people worked on the church land and became like slaves. So Rousseau noticed this, and he says, man is born free. You're born as a free baby, but everywhere you go in chains. So therefore, he talks about how people should be free. And later on that developed into the kind of democratic system which we have, right? So that is Rousseau. But if we are going to make use of that kind of sentence in Buddhism, we would perhaps like to rephrase it in another way. We'll say that man is born and lives in chains, but through the Dhamma he can be free. Because in Buddhism we see human beings as basically being born in chains, right? When you're born out in this world, you're born in chains. You're born, with what are you chained with? You're chained with greed, hatred, and delusion, and there is no escape. That is why the Buddha didn't spend half his life or the whole of his life trying to structure a new political system. When you structure a new political system, what happens? If the components, if the people making up that political system are not pure in their own mind, what happened to the political system? That whole political system itself is also not perfect. Yeah? That is what Karl Marx tried to do. He thought, well, if we have this kind of political system which we call communism, then the whole society will be fantastic. But look what is happening in the communist countries. Are they showing a good example to us? Still no. Because the individuals comprising the political system is not perfect. Even we would say that the kind of system which we have, any political system in the world is not perfect. So we're trying to improve on the political system. But no matter how good our political system is, how good our system is, as long as the people making up of the system are not perfect, they are still in chains, the whole society is still in chains. So instead of addressing to the problem of building up new political systems, the Buddha went to the problem of the individuals. How can we make the individuals better people? Alright? So we are in chains. We are born in chains. We live in chains. But we can be free. We are captive of greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the three evil roots. Greed. Actually, a lot of suffering in this world is because of greed. Greed of human beings. Greed of possession. Greed of sensations. Greed to have the things which we like. And because of this greed, we get these things without thinking about other people. We cause harm to other people. Greed. And we also find a lot of problems in this world is because the developed countries is taking a lot of things in themselves. They've got money to spend. And a lot, about 1/4 or 1/5 of the world population is overfed in the West. They're overfed. Overfed that now they're going to go for aerobics. They should go for dieting and all that because eat too much. But about another 1/5 of the world's population eats quite well, people like us. But around 3/5 of the world is either having malnutrition or starving. So this is how you see the distribution of power, distribution of resources. And this is what can give rise to wars, fighting, wars and all that. It's tied down to human greed. And when you got greed, the opposite of greed is hatred. Now greed and hatred is actually the same. They are one and the same. But of course we say they are separate. Greed is a thing which we want, which brings us happiness, which gives us pleasure. That is what we want. But the things which do not give us pleasure, then you have aversion. So they are actually the same thing, but on the two sides of a coin. They are actually the same thing. And why do we have greed and hatred? It's because of our ignorance. So the purpose of practicing Buddhism is to remove our ignorance. To become a Buddhist is to try to reach out for wisdom, to reach out for perfection. Right? So the purpose of the Buddha's mission in this world is to teach us how we can be wise, how we can remove that ignorance, and when you remove the ignorance, your greed will become smaller and finally disappear, and when your greed disappears, your hatred also disappears. So all the suffering, all the evil deeds performed by beings, of living beings like us, is because of these three evil roots. They're called roots because like a tree, you can finally trace what gives that tree that ability to grow up from its roots. So it is as if all evil deeds come from three things: greed, hatred, and delusion. So everybody has greed, hatred, and delusion. In fact, the moment when we are born with greed. You know what enables us to go around in samsara again and again? It's because of our greed. our attachment to live on forever. So that is the thing which keeps us in this circle of birth and death. So we are not free. Unlike what Rousseau says, we are not born free. We are born in chains. And everywhere we go in life, we are tied up in chains. We are chained up in our greed. We are chained up in our illusions, with our hatred. We are all in chains. But through the practice of Dhamma, we can be free. So in the ultimate sense, we are born in samsara, and there doesn't seem to be an escape. We are tied up, we are being chained to this circle of birth and death. But through the practice of Dhamma, we can free ourselves from this circle of birth and death. So therefore, no matter what political system you adopt, these are certain universal factors which will still continue to govern us. For instance, the good and bad effects of our good and bad karma. Whatever political system you have, you may have the best political system in the world. If you have performed evil deeds, there is no escape from your evil deeds. The Buddha says that if you have performed evil deeds, the analogy given in the Dhammapada is like if you got a bullock cart, you got a bullock cart and you got an oxen, you got a buffalo pulling the bullock cart. When you perform evil deeds, it is like the wheel of the bullock cart falling, the hooves or the legs of the oxen which draws the cart. You got the bullock cart, this oxen pull the cart, and each time the oxen walks, the wheel will follow the oxen. Everywhere the bullock goes, the wheel will follow the oxen. And we know that it is very heavy, right? When you carry the bullock cart, I'm not sure if anybody down here has tried pulling a bullock cart. It's very heavy. So when we perform evil deeds, our evil deeds will follow us like that. Very heavy. It weighs down on us, and everywhere you go, it follows you. And there is no escape, also given in the Dhammapada. Even if you go to the highest mountain, you go to the deepest cave or deepest ocean, wherever you go, there is no escape from your evil deeds. So you see, we are very much in chains, no matter what political system you might have. But on the other hand, if you perform good deeds, happiness will follow you like a shadow which never leaves you. Everywhere you go, you also have shadow. You don't have to carry your shadow. It is not heavy. Anybody tries to weigh your shadow, how many pounds is your shadow? How many ounces is your shadow? How many grams? No weight at all. Shadow is effortless. Of course, in Peter Pan, you can pick up the shadow and roll the shadow and store it in the cupboard. Only happens in Peter Pan, but not happen in real life. And shadow is something very light. You can carry the shadow everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, shadow will go with you. So if you perform good deeds, happiness will follow you like your shadow which never leaves you. So we could see the effects of our good and evil deeds will follow us no matter what political system you have. So this is number one. No matter what political system you adopt, you still would have to face these universal factors. Number two, there is no real satisfaction or everlasting happiness in this world, which is characterized by dukkha, anicca, anatta. No matter what political system you have, you still have dukkha. You still have feelings of unsatisfactoriness. As long as you've got this body, as long as some form of existence like this one, in which you have an identity like I, you've got a body like this, you would have to face unsatisfactoriness. Even if you go up to the heavens, to the Deva worlds, there is still unsatisfactoriness down there. Still no escape. Even if you go to the Brahma worlds, there is still unsatisfactoriness. So as long as we are in samsara, constructing a political system is only constructing a political system within this whole framework of samsara in which there is no escape. So you got unsatisfactoriness, you got the impermanence, and you got soullessness. Now I will not talk about these three characteristics because this is a subject for another talk, right? But the Buddha talked about these three characteristics, and as long as we are in samsara, there is no escape. So actually there is no real freedom. There's no real freedom in samsara. Everywhere you go, you're dissatisfied. Some people say, I'm very dissatisfied with Malaysia, let me migrate somewhere else. You go somewhere else, still not satisfied. Still not satisfied. Some people, after migrating, they come back again, still not satisfied. Everywhere they go, still not satisfied. Some people say, never mind, long time ago, they want to go back to China. Go back to China. Do you think they're happy in China? Worse still. So everywhere they go, still not satisfied. You think you go to America, fine. You go to America, still not satisfied. Of course, you do have certain things which you're looking for. Sometimes those are the things which make people happy. But still not happy, not perfectly happy. So nowhere else in this world, there's no spot in the world where you'll be perfectly happy. Because true happiness comes from the happiness in the mind, not really externally. Externally it's also important, right? We have an ability to shape that. Later on I'll talk about that, what the Buddha talks about politics. But now I will just talk from the Dharma. Why the Buddha never gives so much emphasis on constructing political institutions, alright? Because there is no real escape as long as you're in samsara. So what the Buddha was interested in is how to get people out of the samsara such that you may attain perfection, complete peace. Because if within this samsara, no matter what you construct, will still be imperfect. So real freedom can only be found within a person himself. And real freedom is found only when a person frees himself from ignorance. Complete freedom from ignorance. As long as you're ignorant, you can never be free. Huh? And therefore, for a Buddhist, it is important for us to work for our spiritual liberation. Huh? We can have this from right associations, mingle with the people who have the same interests, like you got friends who likes to practice the Dharma, then mingle with them and together strive on for freedom. And another thing is, given an existing political system, given a system which we have, if we can improve the components inside the system, there can be happiness. Some people talk about Pure Land, some people talk about heaven, but do you realize that within earth itself you can have heaven? You can have heaven on earth. How do you have heaven on earth? By if people in that society acts out, they bring out their best qualities, then that society becomes heaven. Pure Land or happiness or heaven is where the mind is pure. If your mind is pure, you have heaven down there. Now surely you must have heard about the explanation of heaven and hell. Some people thought hell is when after a person finishes, when a person is dead, then you either go to heaven or you go to hell. But heaven and hell is here and now also. Give you an example. If a person is sitting on a bus, you can see in a bus, people sitting side by side. Although you're physically sitting in the same bus, you must even be sitting on the same chair or in the same bench. But yet the two persons might be different. Let me give you an example. Say one person sitting on the bench is very happy because that is his birthday. In the morning he received a phone call from his young daughter saying, "Oh, happy birthday, Daddy, and we have a surprise for you," and all that. And that day he's taking off, and he's really feeling very happy. He's feeling very wonderful. So for that person, he's in heaven. So he sits down in the bus dreaming about the happiness of his family. He could almost visualize in his mind his wife and his children and all that, that kind of happiness he has. But just sitting beside him is a person who has lost his job, he has lost everything. And who's taking this bus en route perhaps to a building, to a flat in the city because he intends to commit suicide. And that person sitting side by side, sharing the same bench, almost touching each other. One is in heaven, the other one is in hell. So heaven and hell can actually occur on earth. As long as you can maintain the purity of mind, you will begin to have heaven. So you can try to improve a political system, not necessarily by changing the political system, but changing ourselves, changing the individuals which comprise the political system. Alright. Now having stated all this, about the Buddhist views to why we do not pay too much attention to political system. Let me move on from there. Let's move on the argument to what if Buddhists do have, what is the Buddhist concept of the usage of political power, of political system and all that. Number one, the Buddhist attitude to politics is that the moralization of political power. That we must use political power with responsibility. That is very important. And we use political power to, for instance, for the welfare of the many. For instance, if you look through history, the king, the emperor which has given people the most inspiration is Emperor Asoka. Now we know Emperor Asoka has been very cruel. He lived in the 300 BC, very, very cruel. When he heard his father was dying, and he was on the other end of India, he rushed home. He rushed home, and when he got back, his father just passed away. So therefore, he eliminated all his brothers and sisters, all of them. The wives eliminated, their children all eliminated. He killed all of them. And that is not unusual because that has been done repeatedly in Indian history. Not only in Indian history, also Chinese history has done. You kill everybody, eliminate them, in order that you come to in order that you cannot be challenged. You have that legitimacy from hereditary as well as you have taken care of the political power. And because of that, he was very, very cruel. It seems that he had one garden, which is because he wanted to make hell on earth. And he got somebody who in charge of that garden. No, not like Lake Gardens. That place is all walled up. And anybody who gets down there is being tortured. It's like hell, you see. And he tell that person that if I step into this garden, you must also torture me. So he had that, and he was very cruel. So cruel that people were terrified of him. But one day, when he fought this war of Kalinga, that is in the southern part of India, so many people died. Millions and millions of people were caught up, and thousands died, and there was famine. And for the first time in his life, he realized human suffering. You know, for the first time, after fighting war for so long, sometimes you fight wars, you just enjoy the idea of winning a war. But when he saw how much people suffer, you know, how much suffering he brought, he was so filled with remorse, filled with regret. Sometimes when we do something bad, we say something terrible, we say, "Ayo, we shouldn't have done that," you know. So he was filled with remorse, filled with sadness for the first time. And it also happened that although he managed to kill his brothers and sisters, he managed to kill their wife and all that, one of his brothers' wife, that is his sister-in-law, was expecting. And she managed to escape. And after that, she gave birth to a young boy who later on became a Buddhist monk. This is very interesting. This happened in history. You know? It's like a fantastic story, which can only happen in a Hindustani film. His sister-in-law escaped, and she was expecting. And then she gave birth to a child. And this child was fatherless. And he later on became a monk. So now Asoka, after fighting this war, was filled with remorse. And he couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, he's just filled with so much regret. And there was this young monk who was walking down the street, very peaceful, very serene. Although he's a young boy, he's only about 9 years old, very serene. But actually he has attained certain things, he realized certain things. So when Emperor Asoka saw this young monk, he was very impressed. So he invited this young monk to the palace to teach something, you know, because he sees this young monk very unusual, carrying himself in a very special way. So this monk, when he came to this palace, it was actually the room, the hall where the emperor receives people. And he looked around him, he saw all the chairs. But there is none of the chairs in the room which is as great as a chair in the center of the room. That is a throne, of course. And he thought that, well, if I'm going to speak the Dharma, then I should be speaking the Dharma seated on a chair, which is appropriate for one to preach the Dharma. So he went and sat on the throne of Emperor Asoka. It's a good thing that Emperor Asoka was in a good mood, you see. Otherwise he will never have a chance to listen to the Dharma itself. So from the throne, his young nephew taught to him the Dharma. And he was converted into a Buddhist. He became a Buddhist because of that. And when he became a Buddhist, it's a complete change. You begin to see a different Asoka. Complete change. People begin to call him Dhammasoka. He started hospitals for the first time. Hospitals for animals. First hospitals in the world were given by Asoka. He supported education. He gave free medicine. Promoted science, promoted studies. Planted trees everywhere for travelers. Dig wells so that people who are thirsty might be able to drink themselves with the water. And give religious tolerance and all that. And sent out people to other countries to make peace with them. So in fact, the reign of Emperor Asoka, if you look through in history, he is a very exceptional emperor. Most emperors, what do? They kill. That's why we say that they're great. But this Emperor Asoka is very different. Very, very different. And he is also the one, we must be very grateful to him, he was the one who made Buddhism into a world religion. Very grateful to Emperor Asoka. Otherwise, Buddhism will probably be in India and disappear in India. It's because of him that Buddhism went to China, went to other countries, and even went right up to quite close to the Finland, went up to Greece, went up to Egypt, went up to Israel, went up to China, went up to southern, southern Russia, went down to Southeast Asia and all that. It's because of Emperor Asoka, because of his efforts. So we're quite grateful to him. We're very grateful to him. So the use of political power has to be done with a sense of morality. This is what the Buddha says. The Buddha never encourages wars. In fact, the Buddha is perhaps the only religious teacher who actually went to the battlefield to stop a war. He actually went to the battlefield and stopped a war. He said, stop, don't fight. And those people went home. They put down their weapons, they went home. So the Buddha says that the victor breeds hatred, the defeated lives in misery. He who renounces both victory and defeat is happy and peaceful. So if you win in a war, you encourages hatred. Other people will hate you. If you are defeated, you live in misery. So the one who has given up victory and defeat is the one who will be very happy and peaceful. Then the Buddha says actually we should conquer anger with kindness, wickedness through goodness, selfishness through charity, falsehood through truthfulness. So if you want to conquer something, then let us conquer bad with good. Let us try to conquer what is not truthful with what is truthful. We should conquer anger with kindness. We should conquer wickedness with goodness. This is how we should conquer. And the Buddha says that one may win, one may conquer others, thousands and thousands in a battle. You may go to a battle, you fight a war, you conquer thousands and thousands of people. But he who can conquer himself is the greatest of all conquerors. Actually, harder to conquer ourselves. Isn't it true? Sometimes we make all the fine resolutions. Every time you have New Year, you make all the resolutions. Long list of resolutions. How many of that resolutions do you practice? You don't. That is why they remain as resolutions. Promise to do this, promise to do that. Year in and year out, make resolutions. It's very hard to conquer ourselves. You may conquer thousands in the battle. It is much harder to conquer our own minds. The Buddha preaches non-violence and peace as his universal message. He never approved violence or destruction of life. To the Buddha, there is no such thing called a just war. So you cannot use the Dhamma to justify a war, saying that the war is a just war. According to the Buddha, there is no such thing called a just war. Now, in fact, if we look at the 5 precepts, I think all of us know the 5 precepts by heart. Every Sunday we come here and chant. We can also look at the 5 precepts in terms of, from the political point of view. Now, when we look at the first precept of not killing, first precept of not killing is actually to control our anger. This is how we should control aggression, how we should not be aggressive by attacking neighboring countries, and how we should have the spirit of goodwill. That is related to the first precept. Second precept is the precept to control greed. We find that a lot of border problems is about greed. For instance, there is this problem of China and India. Now they say that some problem is building up between this border problem between China and India. Again, about territory. China and the Soviet Union because of territory. Israel and Palestine because of territory. It is because of greed of taking up other people's land and all that which gives rise to a lot of problems. So if we practice the second precept taken at the international level, it means don't try to be greedy. Don't take the land which is not yours. And this is the source of problems. And on the other hand, practice charity. Give foreign aid. Give aid to countries which needs aid. This is second precept. Third precept is on sensual attachment. Taken at the country's level, it means that if people in a country is lazy, do not want to work hard, you become lazy. What happened to the country? You become very non-productive, you lose out. And that can also cause a downfall of your economy. Look at the Roman Empire, what happens. After they have built up a huge Roman Empire, the Romans became lazy because you got slaves to do everything what you want. So the Romans just go to the bath, sleep, lie down, bask in the sun, rub olive oils on their body and enjoy. And then what happens is the whole society collapsed. With the great Roman Empire collapsed. So this is the third precept. To have certain feelings of contentment, but not to be so lazy. Not to be so lazy, not to be so sensually attached. To be productive, taken at the national level. This is a different way of looking at the 5 precepts. Then number 4, about lying. 4th precept about lying. It means that the responsible use of information. You know that sometimes various kinds of governments, or especially newspapers, they give information as well as misinformation. Actually, newspapers and the mass media influences public opinion. So it means that we should use the mass media with responsibility and don't give misinformation. Sometimes misinformation can cause panic. I think last week I told, for some of you who attended the talk, I told you about the Jataka story, about how the rabbit was sleeping under the tree and dreamt that the sky was falling down. Actually what happened was a fruit, a ripe fruit fell down, boom! And he got up with a shock and he started running out. He said, the sky has fallen down, the sky has fallen down. And the whole forest, everybody panicked, all the animals started running, right? You remember the story? And how they were running to the edge of a cliff. And at that time, the Bodhisattva was a lion, so Bodhisattva was seeing everybody was running to their disaster. So he go a big roar. And when he roars, all the animals stop and listen. Pop, they stop and listen. Because when the lion roars, all animals will stop and listen. So they stop and listen, and the lion said, "Why are you running?" He says, "Well, haven't you heard the sky has fallen down?" And he said, "Okay, you tell me, whom did you hear the sky has fallen down?" He said, "Well, I heard it from the monkey. The monkey, all right, Mr. Monkey, where did you hear it from?" "I heard it from the deer." "Oh, right, Mr. Deer, whom did you hear it?" "I heard it from the parrot." "Okay, parrot, whom did you hear it?" And finally, it traced back to the poor rabbit. Everybody looking at him. He says, "Well, yes, the sky has fallen down." So Bodhisattva says, "Show me where the sky has fallen down." They went to the spot and found that there was a ripe fruit down there lying to be eaten. It's not the sky. This is the problem of rumor. So the 4th precept is a responsible use in the transmission of information. And number 5, which is intoxicating drugs and liquors, actually tries to maintain clarity of mind. It is important for people to maintain a very cool head. Because sometimes you find in certain countries people are very violent. The moment they hear a bit, wow, everybody reacts, have demonstration and all that, strikes and all that. Then what happened to the country? Also terrible, in a very terrible situation. Important for people in the country to maintain a cool head. So this is how you can see application of the 5 precepts at the national as well as at the international level. It's quite interesting. Later on, if you want, we can talk into greater depth about this kind of principles. But the Buddha has talked about the problems of good government in this Dhammapada Takata. He shows that if the heads of government, he could well be the king, he could be the president, he could be the PM, or he could be whatever. If the head of government is corrupted, is degenerated, then the whole country will actually go down. The Buddha says that, the Buddha taught that if the head of government is corrupted, then the second in command says, after all the head is corrupted, we can also be corrupted. Then when that second level becomes corrupted, third level also becomes corrupted. Then it goes right down. So the whole country becomes degenerated and corrupted. Very dangerous. So he spoke about corruption. The Buddha actually talked about corruption. He says, government should not try to be corrupted. To be clean. Clean government. And how the government should act out of humanitarian principles. You act because of humanitarian grounds. To have compassion. This is one advice which the Buddha gave. How government should not be corrupted. Second advice the Buddha gave is in this Chakravarti Sihananda Sutta. He says that poverty is a source of immorality and crime. Isn't it so? Now you read in the newspaper what happened. House breaks, robbery and whatnot. What happens? Economy went down. Economy went down, so you bring in a lot of workers, have no job, they got a family to feed, then they started turning to crime. Of course, what we can do is you can have a more efficient police force, you can have various kinds of laws to punish people. But no matter what you have, you can be very repressive. Some government very repressive. But as long as you have not solved the problem at the core, the problem will still be there. Poverty as a source of crime. Actually, we are seeing it now. But the big problem is that when the economy starts picking up, sometimes your crime will not decrease, Because when I went to USM, somebody told me that USM, you go to university, wonderful, Why? If you're a thief, like you're a motorbike thief, you see so many motorbikes for you to choose from. Just choose anyone. Hundreds and hundreds of bikes down there. So people just go into the university, just steal a bike. And then sell a second hand, cheap on it. Sell $200. You don't know what a motorbike, very nice Honda Sports 250cc or whatever. For say a few $100s, you say, oh sure, stolen property. This is the problem, greed. People don't want to buy the real thing. You go and buy this stolen property. You say, never mind, stolen property, never mind, cheap, So once the economy pick up, you think this person wants to work again. Why must he work in say, for instance, in a construction site? So hard, carry the cement, all day in the sun, spading the cement up the lorry or whatever. Because very easy, you go to the campus, just take one bike, and then you get a few $100s. So even when the economy picks up, it's very hard. Once the people start having an easy way out, they start becoming thieves. Very hard for them to change their habits. So this is a problem. And that is why the Buddha says that poverty can be a source of immorality and crime, such as theft, falsehood, violence, hatred, and cruelty. And therefore, kings and governments who try to suppress crime through punishment are not likely to succeed. So the way to improve the situation is to have economic development, to have economic growth. So the Buddha says, talk about prosperity, Don't say that the Buddha says only renounce. But Buddha says you need to have prosperity in the country. And that is the way how you can effectively tackle poverty. If you find that people are poor, then give certain kind of social aid, social services, give them some kind of food and all that, so that people can maintain a decent life. Very important. You see, the Buddha was a very practical person when he gives this kind of advice. He gives this advice to how to rule a king. Then also in another sutta, in the Kuddadanta Sutta, the Buddha says that it is futile, it is not so useful to use force to eradicate crimes. Now, many countries use force. You eradicate crimes, you become more and more repressive, become more and more cruel. Even there you still have crimes. You still have crimes. Like a long time ago, if they steal and they are caught, then they are fined, they let go. Now you say, okay, you are caught, we shall do whatever it is. We shall either throw you into prison or cut off your head or whatever it is. Now people are so afraid of being caught that after robbing someone, they kill that person so that no witness. So it becomes worse and worse. The law becomes more repressive, the criminals becomes worse and worse. Each time when they steal, they kill the victims as well. So you actually don't solve the problem that way. So I'm not sure whether you have heard of this before, but isn't it incredible? The Buddha talks about such things. And besides that, in the Jataka, the Buddha has given 10 rules for a good government. How can we have a good government? So the Buddha has given 10 rules. And I could I can guarantee, I'm sure after you listen to these 10 rules, if any government in the world were to follow these 10 rules, I'm sure there'll be a lot of happiness in that society. And that society will be progressive. The Buddha has given these 10 rules on government. Very good advice. Number 1, he says that the head of government, the government, it could either be the king, it could be the PM, it could be the cabinet, it could be the president, generally the government. Down here he says the king, but it means the head of government. Should practice these qualities. The first quality is liberality, generosity, and charity. What does it mean? It means that rulers should not have craving and attachment to wealth and property. Rulers might not be so greedy to accumulate wealth, property, and all that for themselves. Instead, resources should be shared equitably so that other people can enjoy the wealth of the nation. So this very important principle of liberality, generosity, and charity to be practiced by the head of government. The second advice the Buddha gives is the government should be of high moral character. High moral character means at least practice 5 precepts. If you can, practice more precepts, better still. But at least 5 precepts. Then that means the leaders are people with high moral integrity. When you look at them as a leader, you trust them. You trust them. Whatever they say, you trust them. They are not like some politicians where you don't trust. In fact, I think in America, they've got this association of liars. It's called an association of liars. And if you want to be a member, easy. You just submit in a lie which nobody has thought about. So if they look at the lie and it's a good lie, you become a member. So you can become a member of the International Society of Liars. But let me see how many groups of people are debarred from it. There are some people who are barred from becoming members, one of whom are politicians. Because they thought, according to that society, they say politicians are, after all, professional liars. So this society is only for amateurs. Right. So it is important for people who hold public office to be of high moral character, not the kind of people whom the International Society of Liars would debar from. All right? To be of high moral character. Number 3, leaders should sacrifice for common good. That is to be prepared to serve wholeheartedly for the sake of the people. Actually, sometimes when we say about these qualities, very quickly which comes to our mind in KL is who? Li Liam Tai, isn't it? Very easily it comes to our mind about people who sacrifice for the common good. Of course, I'm not campaigning for him. Please don't think that I'm using this as a political platform. But it always strikes me that each time when I read a paper, each time when there's a disaster, there'll be him down there, hanging around, writing something. But I think basically politicians should actually be like this, I am not going to say which political affiliations I come from, just putting aside the political party which he represents, but as an individual or somebody who holds public office, he should try to serve the people, either as a politician or as a civil servant or whatever. You should try to provide good service, to sacrifice for the common good, rather than to think that since you're down there, you hold power, okay. So people have to please, can you please do this for me? He say, well, it's not so easy, How political power? You have to serve. You have to help people. This is what the Buddha says. Sacrifice for the common good. The 4th quality of good government is that the leader should be honest and of high integrity. You should be sincere in the intentions. Don't have double talk. And when it carries justice, to be impartial. To be just. To be just. That is the 4th precondition of a good government. The 5th precondition of a good government is the leaders, people who hold public office, must be kind and gentle. Must be kind and gentle. The laws which the society have must be humane laws. Humane laws means sympathetic to the poor and needy, providing high quality social services, maintaining the human touch. There is still the human touch. To have compassion when carrying out a person's official duties. This is the 5th condition, to have kindness and gentleness. Number 6, to be austerity in habits. The government must not spend, build this, build that, have this celebration, that celebration, this and that, And finally, what happens to the country? Not much money left. So the leaders should be austere, to be not to spend so much, not to be so extravagant, to spend within the means, to avoid overindulgence in prestigious projects and all that, and to have a moderate lifestyle. This is the 6th important quality for a leader, for good government. Number 7, to be free from hatred, ill will, and enmity. Therefore, the government must not bang on people, must not be aggressive to some other countries, for instance, to be non-aggressive in foreign policy, to maintain good ties of friendliness with neighborly countries. Number 8, to be non-violent, to promote peaceful solutions when there are conflicts, to prevent wars, to be non-violent, to always talk about tolerance. Come, let us be more harmonious. Let us not be violent. And these are the kind of leaders which will help to give rise to good government. Number 9, to be patient, forbearance, tolerance, and understanding. So leaders must have this good quality. Patience, tolerance, and understanding. Don't act too fast in retribution. sometimes when people give feedback, some people holding public office might not like. So you have been district office. Then people start giving feedback and saying, "Oh, you're a terrible district officer," and then you say, "Okay, you say that of me. I shall see that your approval will, your application will not be approved." Don't be like that. To be patient, to listen, to be tolerant, and the 10 good quality of a leader is non-opposition and non-obstruction. Don't oppose the will of the people. Don't oppose the will of the people. Have an open policy and carry out the will of the people. Encourage public participation. So you see, the Buddha has given these 10 guidelines for good government. And believe me, if there is any country which follows where the people who hold political power or who holds public service have this kind of qualities, you can imagine that is a very conducive society to live in. Now let me go through again. This is given in the Jataka. Number 1, the leader must have liberality, generosity, and charity. And number 2, to have high moral character. And number 3, to sacrifice for common good. Number 4, to be honest and have high integrity. Number 5, to be kind and gentle. Number 6, to have austerity in habits. Number 7, to be free from hatred, ill will, and enmity. Number 8, non-violence. Number 9, patience, tolerance, and understanding. And number 10, non-opposition, non-obstruction. To listen to the will of the people. So this is the advice given by the Buddha on how a person should rule. If you are a ruler or you're holding public office, this is the 10 qualities which you should have. Alright. Now, after saying all this about what the Buddha has to say to government, how to rule a country, that poverty is a source of a lot of crimes, how the government should try to have economic development, to have equitable sharing of resources and all that. Now let us see Buddhism, Buddhism and political system. Now many of us might not realize it, but actually in Buddhism we actually talk about equality of all human beings. You talk about equality, well, it is actually being practiced in Buddhism. Equality. It has been practiced by the Buddha. For instance, the Buddha was perhaps the first religious leader who ever constructed a society, which is classless and which is casteless. The Buddha doesn't believe in caste or class. The Buddha says one is not born as a Brahmin. You're not born into a Brahmin caste. You become a Brahmin through your actions. In other words, if you say that you are a person of a high caste, you're not a person of a high caste because you have been born into that family, but rather because you have good actions. Alright? So if we also say in the Sangha, there is no caste. If you come from whatever caste in the Indian society, the moment when you become a Buddhist, you lose your caste. The Buddha says that you have many rivers flowing into the ocean, but when the water goes into the ocean, you cannot say this drop of water is from that river or this drop of water is from that river. Everybody loses their caste. Everybody is equal. Way before Abraham Lincoln tries to free the slaves in America. Thousands of years before Abraham Lincoln tries to free the slaves, the Buddha is the first religious leader to talk about classless. To have classless, equality of people. Yeah? The only classification is based on moral conduct. And number 2, the Buddha also encourages the spirit of social cooperation and active participation in the society. That everybody should participate actively, not to become passive. Many of us are very passive. We're just happy in going to our office, do our work, go back home, just be interested in our family. But we don't contribute to society. We don't contribute to the community, not even to the Buddhist community. Actually, Buddhists are the worst culprit. At least other religions, they contribute unto their community. The Christians contribute 1/10 of their income. You call that the tithe. Once you become a member of a church, you contribute to the church. 1/10 of your income. If you earn $3,000 per month, that means you get $36,000 per year. You contribute $3,000 per year to the church. It's like income tax. You contribute to the church. And some people contribute much more, because they say that it is between myself and God. The Muslims contribute to the community as zakat. What do the Buddhists contribute? I don't know, perhaps once a year they come in and put some money in the charity box, which is good. But once a year, that kind of donation will not really help very much for the running of the Buddhist society. And many Buddhists, what? They want free of charge. They want to come free of charge, free food, or line up. Or free booklets. Or if you organize activities free, when you charge, they say, are you religious things or so much charge? And do you know you need money to organize certain things? Yeah? Not prepared to contribute. Not prepared to contribute for the society. We not only should try to contribute in terms of money or in terms of whatever we have, in terms of material things, but we should also try to contribute in terms of our energy, for instance. Now, for some of us, we can come, for instance, to clean up a place or to contribute to organize certain kind of things. We should try to do that, to do something for society. So the Buddha talks about the spirit of social cooperation and active participation, how we should participate in order to promote for the welfare of the society, for the improvement of the life of the members in that society. Don't try to be so tidak apa. Yeah, but this actually Buddhist is quite terrible. Quite terrible, and that is because now, if we don't actually stand up, we don't actually try to become more educated in the Dharma, what will happen to our generations of Buddhists who never had an opportunity to be exposed to Buddhism? No opportunity, they change their religion. And next time they turn to crime and all that. And next time when you see this young kid becoming a criminal, land up in Pudu jail, he could have been a productive member of society had he got a chance to receive the Dharma. But we have deprived him of that chance for not acting, for being so complacent. And because of that, he's there and is condemned to death or whatever it is. We are actually to be blamed because we do not act as responsible members of the Buddhist community. So the Buddha talked about the spirit of social cooperation and active participation. And this is seen in an example of the Sangha. How every member of the Sangha cooperate and participate in decision making.